All right, so I want to get into the playoffs and just share some of our kind of strategies and reminders just as we're setting our lineups, we're approaching, week 15 and what needs to happen. So I think every league's different, but let's say most leagues have at least one flex position. I'm in many leagues that have two flex positions. I've eliminated kickers and defenses, so we've added an extra flex. To me, the fantasy playoffs are won in the flex, right? Because for the most part, if you're in the playoffs, your top guys are probably, you've got a couple top guys, they've got a couple top guys. You need those guys to deliver. So you're only going to win and move on if you're the people that you drafted in the first two rounds, if they come through for you, you got a chance. But for the most part, these are going to be tight matchups. And so it's going to come down to who produces in the flex. My personal opinion is, it depends on your roster, but if you're debating between two guys, I lean running back because I want a guy that is going to get the touches. With receivers, there's no guarantee. Whereas with running backs, unless a team abandons the run, but if they've got any chance at volume, they've got a chance to punch one in for a touchdown. I like my flexes to be running backs. And so if I have two flexes, I try to start 4 running backs as long as I've loaded up enough. And that's where a McCormick can be put in there. That's where a Tyrone Tracy can be put in there. Even, consider Washington running backs, right? We got to keep an eye on even Chris Rodriguez, McNichols, like some of those guys, some of those names that have been floating around. Those are flex options this time of year. So what are some other tips for you?
I think that's the only caveat I would add to that is let's say you're the 6th place team. You were the last team to make it in the playoffs for your league, and you're coming up against the juggernaut in your league, and you just know I've got this Jalen McMillan guy on my bench who maybe could go off for 90 yards and a touchdown, as opposed to a running back who might get 75 yards rushing and no touchdown. There is this sort of like underdog mentality of I just need a player to blow up. And so, it's a lot has to do with your roster, but also pay attention to your opponent. And if they got Josh Allen and you just know, I mean, they've got a baseline of 120 points, no matter how bad their week goes. And I've got to do something to try to make a big swing. I might put like a boomer bust receiver into my flex spot under those circumstances. Otherwise, I think you're right. The running back is much more reliable, especially at this time of the year when the weather's getting colder. Right. There's the chance
games
of snow.
Get tighter. It's tricky.
Yeah, I would say I pay more attention to strength of schedule at this time of year. So obviously you're not benching Josh Allen if he's playing somebody really great. But if you have one of these middling quarterbacks, you've been streaming quarterbacks, or you've got a running back that's kind of start or sit on any given week, I'm looking at how tough is the defense that they're playing. And at this time of year, you know the defenses that you don't want to be coming up against that are kind of stud defenses. I'm a little bit worried, to be honest. Joe Burrow has been great. Obviously, I'm never benching him, but he's playing the Titans at Tennessee this week. And at home, they have been a ferocious defense. Now, on the road, less so, but the Detroit Lions, if you've got a running back who's kind of a middling running back and they're playing the Lions, it's possible that their team could have to abandon the run before halftime, So I'm paying attention to strength of schedule stuff like that. And then the only other thing is I don't do this in the first week of the playoffs, but second week of the playoffs and beyond, I'm looking at my opponent and what their waiver wire needs are going to be. And I'm trying to pick up every player that they might need. Wow. Now, some people get really mad about this, but I think if you see your opponent needs a quarterback or a running back and you look at the waivers and there are, 4 guys who they might be startable running backs for them in a desperation situation, I'm making a waiver bid for all 4 of those guys. I'm trying to add every single one of them. I know people don't like that, but again, in the playoffs, you want to be humble. Don't text your buddy and tell him how you won and he lost and he's a failure and you're a success. But you're trying to win the game that's right in front of you, and it just 1 week at a time, just trying to get it. Once you're in the playoffs, anything can happen. Anything can happen. You can win. You can make it all the way through. You just need a string of 3 good games, and that's possible in the playoff situation.
Yeah, that's bold.
Seems like you don't like bold. My last kind of
it's annoying
playing defense on waivers. I'm a big believer in that.
But it's all right. It's a good strategy. It's fine. I don't personally do it too often.
You too much honor. You're too humble.
No, I'm too humble. Yeah, right. I don't know. It's tricky. It's funny.
I've won championships that way before. I'll say that sniping the the handcuff wide receiver or the backup, the quarterback that they really need to start this week. So I'm not above it.
This happened in the regular season, but somebody tried to do that against me. I needed a quarterback. He got all the quarterbacks, and I played against him with no quarterback.
Wow.
And I beat him.
Man, that's a real, that's a top dog move right there. I would never do it in the regular season because it can backfire in so many ways, but in the playoffs, I'm not above it.
I changed my team name to No QB.
Oh, that's good.
So yeah, it was fun. But all right.
Zero QB strategy.
Yeah, exactly. So here's the other thing to discuss, and you've got to sort of talk this out with yourself, but how do we deal with injuries? Now, we deal with it all season long, but when it comes to the playoffs, injuries, like reading every injury report, reading through the lines, like we have to factor in so many things when it comes to deciding who we're going to put in our lineup in regards to injuries. And so Bucky Irving is a great example of that. Like, let's think about this. Are the Bucks, like, they're not desperate to play Bucky Irving or to give him carries. They got Sean Tucker and Rachaad White. So it doesn't really make sense for us as fantasy managers to put Bucky Irving in. Now, could he feel good and be great? And not maybe, but I'm not sure that that's worth the risk. Now, if you have, let's say, who's a team fighting? The Broncos. So they have to win. Now, I'm not saying Courtland Sutton's healthy, but if Courtland Sutton was injured, like he's playing through an injury, like they have to have Courtland Sutton out there. So like they're gonna lean on Courtland Sutton. They've been so dependent on him. They're fighting for a playoff spot. So those types of teams, like you have to really consider that. And then, again, if it's your flex guys, you want healthy guys. Like, so if it comes down to, do I play this guy? He's a little banged up. He's questionable. I think you got to go with the healthy guy in your bench that's sort of coming on and finally getting his chance this time of year. He's got fresh legs. He's got it in him to go surprise you and play well. I mean, look at the Jets running backs, right? They come in and, Isaiah Davis comes in and plays well. He finally gets his chance. He's been waiting all season long. So I don't think we have to be afraid of those guys in the flex spot. Now, the guys that you've been depending on all year, even if they're questionable, you probably got to lean on them, right? The studs, the top guys, like for the most part, especially if their NFL team has the playoffs on the line, they're playing. They're going to find a way to get them involved. They'll get shot up with the cortisone or whatever. They're getting out there. But the teams that are not fighting for a playoff spot, they're not playing through injury. There's no reason for them to. And so why should we put them in there? That's my take. Any holes in that?
No, I love that, man. I mean, I just think you have to pay attention situationally.
Situationally?
No, did I say it wrong?
Situationally.
You have to pay attention situationally,
There you go.
especially during the fantasy playoffs. I think in general, during the regular season, you start your studs, you play your best players, and that's the end of it. But there's a great there's an author named Ali Banpuri who writes for NFL.com. He's the next gen stats guy, and
You're just showing off now with your name.
Well, I can't say situationally, but I can say Albani Kandi. It's like he every week he writes an article that is the full playoff picture and what odds every team has of making it to the real NFL playoffs. And it's a great little. It's not long. It's a great little reference to, okay, do the Cowboys have any reason to play CeeDee Lamb this week? Well, no, it turns out they really don't have any reason to the rest of the season, and so it's just going to be the smallest thing that's going to put him on the sidelines. The Broncos, they're in a tough battle to make it to the playoffs. And so
the Dolphins,
Javonte Williams is going to be out there, even if he's nicked up, even if he's not playing well, they're going to put whoever they think is their best running back, And so it's like, those are the things that are worth knowing. Now, I will say that works the other way too. There's a guy like Tyrone Tracy, who the Giants they're dead and gone from a playoff perspective, but he's playing for his NFL future, and
to be the guy so that they don't go draft another running back or go sign a running back.
I would have said Chuba Hubbard would have been a guy like that until he got that extension, So now it's like, well, now maybe he's their running back of the future with that Brooks injury. And so you're paying attention to situations like that in the fantasy playoffs in the way that you don't need to in the regular season. It's worth just doing 10 minutes of research of, golly, what's another good example? Hey, what is the Seahawks sort of playoff outlook here if they lose the next game, and what are the decisions they're making in terms of bringing back Kenneth Walker versus rolling with Charbonnet, things like that.
That's right.
So you're playing a little bit of 3D chess here as you get into
That's
the playoffs.
These are the playoffs.
That's what makes it fun. What makes it fun.
Trying to win championships here.